Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR. And today we're going to be talking about why do we say yes when we really mean no. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people who've kicked themselves and regretted making decisions because they do not understand what they're saying. Their communication is not clear. And they end up saying yes, even to their children, when they really mean no. And it comes back to bite them in the behind. And so it's very frustrating for a lot of people in the workplace, who feel the pressure. They're saying yes when they really mean no. In relationships, right? We say yes when we really mean no. And then we end up arguing and going through a whole lot of changes is because we can't understand why we're making some of these decisions in our lives. And these decisions have negative impact on us because there's something inside of us that we can't get a grip on. Well, we constantly do it, but it does become problematic from time to time, and people call us on it. And when they call us on it, we get our backs up, we become defensive, and we say to ourselves, even in silence, why did I say yes when I meant to say no? Well, today we're going to talk about that. What are the reasons for us saying yes? And there's different reasons out there for saying yes. And we're going to cover some of those reasons. But we have to be very clear that it's very common out there for people to say yes when they really mean no. One of the reasons that we are saying yes when we really mean no is because we're seeking approval. See, many of us say yes because we've created this scenario that has put us into a situation where we have to say yes. You see, if I am looking for others' approval to feel good about myself, so when someone asks me something, I feel obligated to say yes in order to stay in their good graces, to be in their favor. And you don't want to look at yourself. You don't want to believe that you're being so controlled because you want to be liked. Unfortunately, though, the truth is that many of us, we've placed our values on what others think of us. That's a very big issue. We want to be liked. And wanting to be liked is not necessarily a bad thing. No. But when we make our values and our work dependent on what other people think, we've created this problem, this scenario that we're dealing with. And that doesn't allow us to take care of ourselves, right? If I take care of myself, I'm going to be disappointing other people. And I don't want to do that, right? I realize that I need these other people in my life, right? I have to understand my worth. I can't be going through this guilt trip or just trying to please other people, but I do it. Many of us do it, right? We really need to think about that. How much are we valuing ourselves because we want to be liked so bad that we say things that we really don't mean? We say yes when we really mean no. And that can be very problematic for many of us. It's this seeking of approval that has gotten us into this problem. And how many of you out there are doing that? Well, you're afraid to say no, even to a parent. See, that's a lot of pressure as well. You want to please them. So you're saying yes when you really mean no. Too many times, I can't tell you, where people have struggled, clients have struggled with saying no. They're so accommodating and they want to please, right? And you can't please everyone, but you do try. There are also those who say yes when they really mean no because they're not realistic about what they really can do. And this goes for many scenarios, however, parenting especially. We want to raise our children and give them everything that we can, and we believe that we can do a lot of things for them. So we commit. We commit to these obligations. Our children are asking us if we can take them here. Now, mind you, we've already got our schedule down, our work responsibilities. And then our children come along and they break that up with, listen, I just got my friend telling me they're going to this club and I need a drive. But you've just had a long day and you want your child to be safe. So, of course, we say yes. And, we really mean no. And we haven't really had a chance to think about it. Or if the child wants us to help them with their homework when we're so exhausted and we can't find anyone else to do it, and we end up going and burning ourselves to these points where we feel obligated to our children at certain times. So we have not been realistic about what we could really do in those times. We have not put the brakes on. We haven't said, listen, you know what? I will help you later. I can't help you now. I need to get a little bit of rest. But what happens? They either get angry or you feel the guilt, right? That you're not taking the time. Or if you don't drive them, something could happen to them. There's a lot of fear and letdown and guilt involved with that when you have these unrealistic expectations about what you can actually do. So you try, or you tell your children that you are gonna commit on Saturday and help them with the project, and at the same time you've cut yourself a little window where you've already obligated to something else, and here you are come Saturday, you're in a dilemma. You have your obligation, but you started with them, so you didn't finish with them, and it's a mess. And then you end up being angry at yourself because you're trying to do everything and you're not realistic about what you actually can do. You're not being realistic with yourself. And this can also be about priorities. Your priorities. Maybe they're not so clear as well. Have you recognize your top priorities? See, what you need to do is when it comes to saying yes or no, you need to know whenever you are in a position to make that decision, you have to understand and spell out your top priorities in your life. And they can be different depending on who you are, what position you are. If you're a manager, or if you're a parent, you need to identify what are your top priorities and clearly outline those. By identifying your priorities, you can ask yourself, is taking on this directly related to my top priorities? If it isn't, better I walk away from it, or it's going to have to wait. I do not have time for this. My priorities are here. I cannot do this. So once we allocate those top priorities, we're going to be more respected in the end. We're not going to necessarily be liked, but we're going to be respected, right? And your priorities could be different for different people in your life. If you're in a relationship, your partner, you could have top priorities for them. If you have children, it could be different priorities, could be the top priorities for them. And then at work, etc., etc. So in each area of your life, you have to identify what are your top priorities. So when a friend asks you for a favor, you get to understand the impact of saying yes or no, right? Depending on your priorities. And you become more peaceful and confident when you outline this. And I really suggest a lot of people write out their statement. It's almost like a family statement that gives them an idea of what are my top priorities. I need to be clear on these top priorities so that I don't become frustrated and say things that I really don't mean. And you end up doing things for other people that they could do for themselves when you say yes when you really mean no. Oh, we get caught up with that feeling, right? It's not a bad thing, but we feel bad, right? We really care about people. We like doing things for them. We love being generous and extending our charity for those people who are in our lives. But sometimes we just take that giving role to the limit. We do. And it's not being selfish if you take time out for yourself. But sometimes we don't consider whether doing it is really a good thing for us. Sometimes we just do because we feel we are obligated to do that. And meanwhile, that person can do it for themselves in certain situations. And then what happens? Most of what you do for them gets done. But, and they are completely dependent upon you. to do these things. So you feel, that you're going to let them down if you don't do them. So there's ways you have to figure out that this given personality that you have, this person, can they do this for themselves? I might not want to do this, but can they do this? And if they can, I might have to step back because really, you're allowing them to grow as individuals. Think about a child, okay, for example, who does not do their bed. And you're a parent that comes along each morning and you're making their bed. You got things to do, but this has become your routine. So you wake up, you're taking care of the house, you make their bed. And believe it or not, there's some parents out there making beds for teenagers, some in their 20s. I've seen it. It's ridiculous. But this is a pattern of behavior we get into. Watch these patterns that we establish for ourselves. So you go along and you picked up this pattern where you make that child's bed every morning. And that's something that child could do for themselves. So you feel, oh, I'm doing it for them. I care for my child. I love my child. But that is something that they could do for themselves. And if you allow them to do it, I'm serious. And you say, hey, you're going to have to make your bed. They might be upset initially. But we're going to have to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable because we need them to grow. You will have parents argue with you, oh, what's wrong with doing them? I've done all my children's bed. Well, that's for you, but you're not letting them grow as individuals. There's certain things that you should be allowing them to do on themselves because you are establishing this relationship. And remember, you could take some time out to do other things for yourself. Sometimes we get caught up in this doing role that we forget who we are, as far as taking care of our needs. And it goes from the child to the husband, right, to the colleague at work. They picked up this behavior that they expect this from us. Meanwhile, they could do it themselves. And often we'll sit in meetings going, why am I sitting here? Why am I in this meeting when this could have been handled without me? But I'm sitting here anyways. This person needs their hand held. See, we have to think about ourselves a little because, believe it or not, we don't. Because we establish these routines and then we say yes when we really mean no. And if we say no, the other person might grow for sure. But we have to allow this. And how many of you are saying yes when you mean no to avoid that negativity? See, sometimes we have this excessive urge to evade this negativity. And this leads us to accept things that we really don't want to. Right? This is a trick in our minds. Because what you agree to do aligns you with personal needs and feelings. You'll get this negativity and you know in your mind, oh my goodness, I want to avoid this at all costs. So you might agree to do something for a friend, even a favor. But you end up feeling anxious, you even get exhausted and stretched out. You start wearing away at you because you took on way too much. You might even end up feeling resentful towards that person. Right? And this is going to impact your relationship, especially if it keeps going on. But many of you, you'd be surprised how much you can tolerate. But we do. We say yes. We don't want to have a negative relationship. We don't want to be viewed as a negative person, period. So we are going to do things for friends that we not necessarily want to do. And of course, we're trying to please. There's no denying that we all seek approval from those around us, right? And we got to admit it. There's no shame. We seek this outside approval to feel good about ourselves. And that's not bad, but it is unhealthy because often it reaches that point, right? Where we determine our value. And even some people say yes when they mean no because they feel it's impolite. Well, it's not. Because you're agreeing to things, you're saving face. It's natural that you agree to certain things. However, it's not impolite. But some people believe, oh, if I don't say yes, I'm going to be considered rude. And also, it's how we've been raised in our family, most of us, right? If we don't comply, we die, right? If we don't do what we're asked to, then it's rude or dismissive. Nah, these are feelings that are put in our head through time and they build up and it becomes the norm and it actually prevents us from thinking for ourselves. It's not impolite to say no. It's not. But people are made to feel this way. And if you're one of those ones, you need to rethink. And some of you just want to be nice, right? You want to be nice to everyone. That's all you want to do. However, there is such a thing as getting way over your head. You can be nice without agreeing to things you don't want. So if a friend does ask you to borrow some money, for example, or your clothes, and you know very well you might never see those things again, you can refuse without perceiving or being perceived as being rude. And people aren't going to think less of you. Well, they might not be happy. And you know how people can get into their rumors and start their foolishness. Well, that's unfortunate, but people are not necessarily going to think less of you. But you may also think that maybe these aren't people I really need in my life if I'm feeling all this pressure, if they're making me feel that way and they're taking advantage of me being nice, right? Because there are people that do that. They know they borrow one thing, next thing you know, they want to borrow another thing, and then they borrow, and then we get to that point where we're like, wait, this person hasn't returned three of the items that I've lent them, and now they're asking for more. But then you start to get that ill feeling inside because you're just like, hey, let me get my stuff back. What, you don't trust me? We played these reels over and over in our mind, and it does not matter. We have to stand up. People are very fragile, and we worry about our impact on them, you know? So we do these nice things, and we feel that once we get out there, we can't pull back because people act up or their response we fear. However, people say, well, if you start this, well, we started it already, right? And we're already in, so you need to pull back. That nice thing, don't let it take advantage of you. Start saying what you mean. And if you're firm, if you borrow something, I need it back. And I won't really lend you things. It's just respect. You don't necessarily have to be nice all the time. Just establish your rules from the beginning. You see, many of you have these reasons for saying yes when you really mean no because you want to follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You help people because that's what you want someone to do to you if you were in need. If you see a lot of yourself in what I'm talking about, then you can understand where I'm coming from. That's just a part of your nature, who you are. You're self sufficient and responsible, and that's why people ask you for things in the first place. But you follow this golden rule. You are a person of your word. And this implies, unfortunately, that you're not allowed to change your mind after putting more thought into something. You're willing to put yourself out there to avoid feeling flaky or someone that they cannot rely on. You become a person of your word. So you say yes and you stick to it all the time. And they come to expect this of you. You may be a caregiver, one of those caregivers who practice this savior behavior. I call it savior behavior, right? People always come to you when they're needing something. They're in a jam or they've gotten themselves into a situation or they need some of your advice. And you're always that type of person that they can depend on, right? That's there. And then you may feel that you do say yes sometimes because of some of the fear that you may lose that person if you do say no. You don't want to be rejected or abandoned. This is, no, this is stirring up inside of you. It can make you sick if you think about it. And I hate being controlled like that. You fear that if you say no, you'll have an argument, and that will reverberate through the relationship, upsetting people that you care about. Your mother, you don't want to upset her. You can't say no to her. Or your partner, you don't want to upset these people. So you just keep on with the behavior. It's not good. So there are a number of reasons why people say yes when they really mean no, but we have to talk about how do we go about saying no? So how do we change this behavior? How are we going to get through? Because we really have to learn how to communicate more effectively. And we have to understand that unless we change some of our behavior, we're going to be on the hook. And this is, we don't want to keep kicking ourselves when we're in private going, why did I keep doing that? What was it about me that I keep falling prey to this? Right? What is it? So we got to change the way we're thinking. And this is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to make yourself convert. Right? These are the steps that you're going to do. First, you're going to have to know your value. Okay? Learn to say no, because this is realizing that you are valuable and you choose to have an opinion of yourself, okay, over others. Depending on other people for their approval, you'll never feel free and you'll be truly unhappy. If you depend on other people's approval, you're basically saying that their opinion of you is more important than your own opinion of yourself. And if your opinion of yourself is low, remember, you have to think about this. Your problems do not define you. And it's okay to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Everybody does things that they're going to regret sooner or later. And this is what makes us human. And what makes a person great is not their looks or their achievements, but their willingness to care for other people, love other people, be humble, and grow as a person. You are a valuable person, and you are important. And no one else can tell you, and no one else can offer that the way you do. And you got to say to yourself, is this really worth it? Deciding to say no, especially if you're saying yes, is it really worth it? After committing to something, doubt eventually does set in. And you may begin to think of other ways you can get out of it. And if you don't have any good excuses, you try to decide, am I going to tell the truth or come up with a lie? And that it's not genuine. You have to think about the anguish and stress you're putting yourself through and the resentment we talked about. Because this has caused you a lot of stress. It would be so much easier if you were straightforward just to say no in the first place. Serious. Think about it. It causes so much anguish and stress. Remember, this one time that you say yes to something and you feel bad about it later, you end up lying your way out of it, right? And you feel bad that you lied. So if you're going to change, here's what you do. This is going to help you say no. You got to be direct, such as no, I can't, or no, I don't want to. Don't apologize and give all sorts of reasons. Don't lie, because this most likely will lead to guilt. And remember, this is what you are trying to avoid. You're trying to avoid these feelings of guilt. And it doesn't feel good, especially when you're an adult, to be doing all that lying. People see through those lies. So don't lie. Because you get caught up all the time and you feel less of a person. Tell yourself that right there is a good start. I'm not going to lie. I'm just going to say what it is. If you can tell yourself that right there, you've reached a big milestone, right? Be polite, such as thanks for asking, but thanks for asking. Still lets them down gently, right? They still keep their yourselves in check a little bit. You're being polite. You're using that statement. But no, but thanks for asking. Hmm. It softens the blow. And practice saying no. Imagine a scenario and then practice saying no, either by yourself or with someone you know, or a friend or a partner. This will get you feeling a lot more comfortable with saying no. Because the less you use it, the more awkward it becomes, right? When you have to. Think about the people that you usually say yes to. They're so used to yes, when you do have to say no, they don't even know what to do with themselves. They're just upset. They're like, this isn't their regular behavior. This person's rejecting me. See, you caused that scenario, right? So you got to get over that. And you got to practice saying no, right? And you got to practice getting uncomfortable sometimes. Too many of you are afraid of that. And don't say, I'll think about it. How many of you do that? I'll think about it. Especially if you don't want to do it. This will just prolong the situation and make you feel worse or stressed or anxious, or it'll be on your mind because you'll think later on, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta meet this obligation, and it's just wearing on you, especially if you put it off, right? Too many of you do that. I shouldn't have said yes, and then it just weighs on your mind. If you don't want to keep building things up, then you have to cut it out from the beginning. Don't give the maybes or I'll think about it, especially if you don't want to do it. And remember that your self worth does not depend on how much you do for other people. It should not. Learning to say no has been a great thing for many people. You know, I've done it many times and I feel good because I feel stressless because I didn't overcommit. And I'm saying what I mean. And people might not like me, but too bad. I don't care. And it's also helped me challenge my fear of rejection. I feel more control in my life when I do this. It has helped me, seriously. I feel more empowered. I feel free. I don't feel trapped or resentful or guilty anymore. Instead, I feel great. And I mean what I say. And if you want the same feeling of freedom, you're going to have to say no. But a number of my listeners out there got alarm bells going on right now. They're shaking themselves. They're stressing. They're thinking, counselor, that sounds easier said than done. And yes, it is, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I promise I'm going to help you. Because I know it's not easy to say no to anyone. People expect yes now more than anything. More than any time in history, people want to hear yes. And when they don't hear yes, they trip. We can deal with this stress. So make sure you prepare yourself to say no. It's easier to say no when we have a concrete reason for doing so, a way to justify our refusal beyond the vague notion that we should avoid the commitment in question. This means that we need to create a reason for saying no before we even need it. Prepare for it. Yes, you can do this. We need a decision making structure or some rules to guide us, to help us, so that we don't have to agonize over any situation. You see, I prepare for no for sure because I have set my limits. Like, for example, I know I might only have 2 days or evenings in my busy schedule to actually do some leisure activities. So I make sure I stick to those 2 days. I don't do it. So when someone asks me, I'm prepared already because I've already established in my schedule that no, I don't have time. I've got these days and I can't go. If I've committed these 2 days, that's it. I set it up. So I make sure no, unfortunately, I've got these things to do, and boom, that's what I do. And I stick to it. I establish a structure. I need to tell these people that I'm not available. Thank you for asking. I only meet people during the work day for lunch. You know, I'm busy. I don't go past those days. I make sure that I have them and I stick to them. I set rules for myself. And you can do that. Set some rules for yourself so that you're prepared. Just have some go-to ways and understand that when you have that, they can be very effective, right? Like making those statements. Like, thank you for asking, but that's not going to work for me. This is vague, but effective. Or, thank you for asking, but I'm not doing any interviews. Or, I have to do my podcast. It's not personal. Or, I don't want to do that, but I'm not available until maybe next month. Will you ask me again later? See? Then that's the ask me later thing. But you don't commit to that because that could get you problematic. So I try to stay away from that one because then it lays on my mind that I might have committed to some. So those are ones that you don't partake in. Be careful, right? Or I can't do it, but I bet someone else can. That will help you if you know of somebody else that can take that response. It lets you off the hook and it lets them off the hook, right? And you let them get hooked up with someone else so it still accomplishes the same task, right? So you are actually being proactive. And then if you say none of these dates work for me, but I would really like to see you, maybe you can send me some more dates, right? That's gonna let them down a little easier, right? I can't put anything else on my calendar, but I'd love to do that with you at some point. See, this way you're letting them down nicely, but you're letting them know that, you know what, I'm still open. See, we don't want to cut people off. See, no doesn't have to be direct to the point where it's like chopping relationships down, where you don't have anybody around because you said no so much that no one expects or can depend on you. No, no, you have to learn how to do it. Right? Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and support. I'm sorry I'm not able to help you at this time. That shows gratitude. You know, I feel like dads are always getting to do the holiday parties with their buddies. Let's ask mom if she wants to help this year with the party, and give mom a chance. Get her involved, right? If you know what I'm saying. So if they're asking you to be one of those ones that contribute, maybe you can offer that. You can offer some alternatives as opposed to just saying no, because it does work. And what also works is no, thanks, I'll have to pass on that. And then be quiet. Don't talk after that. Just be quiet. Shut up. Just no. There's also, I really appreciate you asking me, but I have committed already. And that's a gracious way of letting them down. I wish I could, but it's just not going to work for me right now. And that's giving them that I'm sorry, right? The reasoning behind that is like, I'm sorry, but, and they still, they don't like it, but they're still cool with it. Do you understand? Or I promised my manager that I wouldn't take any more projects on right now. I'm working on creating a more balanced life, right? This gives them that it's someone else's decision. So that's why you're telling them no, right? Just preparing yourself sometimes. It's not lying, it's preparing yourself. Just understanding what to say. Thanks so much for the invite. But that's the day my son has his game. And I never miss those. This is the family reasoning. And I know this is going to sound devious, and I don't want to make you be a bad person, but as opposed to learning that they get the direct no, because people, they always want a yes. Sometimes you got to give them a little white lie. Okay? Or, I just don't have time right now. Let me recommend someone else who'll be able to help you. Still saying no, but I know someone else that can help you. You see what I mean? There's ways of saying no, and these are very helpful hints. Just understanding how to communicate effectively is beautiful. So, I want to say some of the reactions, people, that you're going to get, some of those reactions you may get from some people, those unwanted reactions when they hear no. But if you learn how to communicate effectively on how to let them down, you can still maintain relationships and get through this. And there are ways that you can do that. Certain things that you can say that could still let them know that you're there for them. And one way is to understand, show your understanding, how they feel, and validate it. And this could be hard because it could feel like you're reinforcing their negative feelings, but really you're not. You're not agreeing with them or justifying their negativity because they're having a negative response. You're simply letting them know and you're showing them that you understand how they feel. So you're going to have to find a place to agree with them. You don't have to agree with everything they say, right? When they come back at you with their negative responses, but you can agree with them with something that they're feeling. Oh, I don't feel that, you understand me, there you're here for me. And, you might have to respond with, I do understand you. However, I cannot commit at this time. And I understand that you're feeling frustrated because someone's not there for you. However, at this particular time, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that. So you are sharing some of their frustrations and letting them know this. All right. And you're going to have to find out their positive aspects of their argument for this rejection that they're feeling. And you're going to have to reinforce it. Right? This doesn't mean trying to convince them to be positive. It means giving attention to whatever positive feelings that they do show. So you're going to have to be a good listener because through that frustration and that feeling of rejection, you're going to have to listen carefully because rarely is everything purely negative. You're going to have to be a good listener and make some observations. And sometimes you're going to have to be quiet if you have to. Let them just go through it. Let them vent it out, right? Um, and if you can find something positive in what they're saying, then let them come with it. But sometimes you're going to have to be quiet and be a good listener and let them vent it out and have to deal with it. You heard of that saying, too bad, so sad. Sometimes we don't like to give it, but sometimes we have to find a common ground where we just realize that, hey, it's just something they're going to have to deal with. These are things that you can do and you're going to have to do. You're going to have to find the positive and the negative. A lot of us have a hard time finding it, but you can do it. Trust me. And you got to be prepared for it. And you and I both know that there are negatives out there where people do not really handle rejection well. But that's unfortunate. We got to stop owning everybody else's problems or their issues. We have to learn what is important and we got to prioritize things for ourselves. You know what I mean? Put a level to it and understand that this is priority, this is not, and set up this structure where you understand that you can prepare for most no's. But the more you learn how to say no, it's better for you. Because yes, that means stress. Too much yes is not good for any relationship. Because people get accustomed to it, right? It becomes routine. And they can't handle it when you break the norm or break the routine. And they can't justify. And a lot of them, they become passive aggressive. And because they were told no, they do a million other things. I can't tell you how many relationships I've helped, but understanding that all it was that person, adults too, right? Could not handle no, right? And because they couldn't handle it, the whole relationship was upside down because they simply could not deal with no. They've been conditioned. I can't even tell you how many relationships I've had to deal with where there's a husband in a relationship who has married into this relationship and expected their wives to be like their mothers. And the wives end up doing all these things for them. And the moment the wives can't do it, this man gets upset. There's these expectations put out there. See, that's a real challenging one for a woman to tell a man no in many situations. See, we've talked about how, but we haven't talked about scenarios where it could apply in that household. It could be in a relationship where you're in a relationship where your husband's asking you for some things that you don't want to give, and you feel obligated to give out of pure obligation and commitment and routine. And then if I don't say yes, this is going to be a mess. That's a challenge. So you're going to have to pay attention to what we said, some of the advice that I've given, and you're going to have to apply it. And sometimes we have to take the risk. But too much yes is not good for you, especially if you mean to say no when you're saying yes. So there are some very extreme situations that we could go through. However, I think we've covered some really good information today, and there are ways that you could go about it, but do understand that when you do use the word no, there will be some feelings of rejection, sometimes resentment, and you're going to have to work your way through it. But the most important thing is we're going to have to learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable from time to time and let people down. The word no can be applied in certain situations straight up, but there are many situations where you have to learn to soften the blow. The person that you're talking to is not necessarily going to like it. And people go, oh, too bad what you like. Well, you got to remember, relationships are built on give and take. So if a person gets the perception that you're not doing the give and take, even if you are, you could be doing 90% of the things that they could be doing for themselves, but they're not going to see it that way. They like we like to see things from our perspective. We're right, you're wrong. So if you get into that situation, which most of us do, we're trying to defend it. And we have to be honest with ourselves. When you have friendships, if you want to listen, you don't need to go out there and buy big books, textbooks about friendships. You could educate yourself, but you do need to know the basics. And the basics are if you want to have a decent friendship, you have to be there for people and you have to understand people want to hear about themselves. That's the truth. 80% of conversations when it comes to maintaining friends, tell a person about themselves to a certain degree. Right? And they're going to feel good about themselves and they're going to go, oh, yeah, I like you. I want to be around you. You make me feel good about me, right? Like if you understand that, that's cool. Because we all know that the moment you start telling people what you really feel, there's some trouble. So there's ways you go about telling them how you really feel. Like, no, don't want to do it. There's ways you have to soften that blow. Can't be just cold blooded. Sometimes it can, but most often it cannot. So these strategies we talked about today will be useful if you apply it. So I want to say thank you to all my listeners. Learn to say no when you mean no. Stop saying yes. And we've got reasons why people say it. So play the podcast over and see where you fit in there. Because we all go through these scenarios where we're saying from time to time yes when we really mean no. So please be like the wise old bird and spread the word. And thank you and take care of yourself.